big shout out and thank you and big kudos, of course, also to the great Stone Loki. I hope you're all hearing me out there. Anyone is, please go chat. Please give me a sound check when you can. Welcome everyone to Clobberin Times issue number. Well, on here this new platform since April now, number 46. But in actuality, since I've been doing this stuff, 766 is the number, and got a lot of fun planned for tonight. Let me see if this is coming through. Is anyone hearing me out there? I can't really. I don't know if StreamYard's excuse me, kind of messing up. It shows that no one's here. So if you guys could let me know something, let me know you are here, because I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It could be YouTubing me. Oh my goodness! I don't know. Going to be a StreamYard problem. So you guys let me know if you are hearing me out there, because I'm getting a 0. And I know I see a bunch of people in the chat, or at least a few of my good friends in the chat. So I'm going to pretend like I'm on until someone tells me otherwise. Let's see if we can check something here. Well, I'm on. That's for sure. Okay, so checked. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I don't know what this thing is doing. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. Of course, the beautiful and wonderful Purple Valkyrie. By the way, Purple, forgive me my impertinence, but I went ahead there and made you a mod because, well, you're a distinguished member of Valhalla. I'm not asking you to do work for me, just putting you in there as a mod, just in case you ever wanted to, post, because you have a wonderful channel, Rise to Valkyries, which is in. I have a link to that in the description below, and a lot of other friends' channels below that, by the way. But anytime you want to, I wanted you to be able to post anything that you would like to post. And same goes, of course, for my good buddy Lord Thoth. Hey, man, great to see you, sir. I am honored to have you here. And, of course, my great buddy Mark C. is here with us tonight. Thanks, buddy. Good to see you. Jobber, the great. It's Just Joe 47, my old buddy, my old BTR pal from way back. Jobber, I am happy to see you here, my friend. Thank you for showing up. Let's see here. Who else do we have with the distinguished visitors? Captain Trek, my old buddy. Hey, man. Good to see you, sir. I'm just so honored to see you all here. Eric K, the man, and a master of wrenching, and a master wrencher. And he wrenches things, and he's a wrencher. He's a master wrencher. Not a winch, a wrench. Always here to keep me on track is Eric K. And again, the wonderful, beautiful Purple Valkyrie has a wonderful channel. Please go check that out. And again, please check out the channels that I have links to in my description below. Someone is if that's let's see, I'm about to bring on my friend here. Well, you can see the chat room. I'll explain that to you when I get you on here. I want to welcome a good friend of mine who is here with me tonight. But well, we've known each other a long time, and he is a comic book collector extraordinaire and a great pal. And I've been wanting to get him on for a while right now, and he has been on with me on my old show before in the past. So he is Wes. Can you hear me, bro?
I hear you. Yes, I am here.
You're in the StreamYards. Can you see the chat? There's one that says private chat. There's one that says comments. I think can you see it?
Let's see here.
If not, you can pull up a window for
there
YouTube.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can. It's one or the other. Yeah, I see it. It swaps the two. This is a different format. You were still a BTR last time I called in and did.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. Thanks for being here, bro. I really appreciate it. Let us know, everyone, if you're hearing Wes okay, if you would, Eric and Mark and Lord Toth, you guys. I always say Toth. I know it's Thoth, buddy. I'm sorry. And a great new pal. Hey, Pop Culture Avengers popped in. Hello there. I don't believe we've had the pleasure. Thank you for popping in. My buddy Mark C says, went on a Legion Volume 3 spree. And that's the Baxter, my favorite. From issues to the only missing one. From number issues to only missing the first issue. Okay. And the second Superboy issues. And the two Superboy issues. Oh, the two Superboy issues. I believe like 37 and 38, I believe. Well, that's cool, bro. Purple Valkyrie is wonderful. It's so great to see. And it looks like Yeah, we're getting the okay there from Mark C. Says he's hearing us good. He's hearing you good. Are you hearing Wes good? Good. Doug Oberg. All right, my friend, a great artist in his own right. And a good buddy. Again, yeah, just anybody always just let us know if you have any trouble hearing us. Because we're still getting through. I'm going to be getting a new and more official podcasting microphone soon. So again, if you guys are hearing Wes okay and myself okay, we'll get started here again. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone who's joined me recently. Of course, Mark C and I, we've had some good fun. Let's see, Flash joined me for the other night, and yes, hey Jobber, just to let you know, we both got our list pretty much sussed out for that one, the show you've been wanting us to do again. And for those who don't know, we used to do these 25 countdown lists all the time on the old show, my buddy Flash and I. And for various things, we ran out of topics. We did so many. And one of the ones we did was so long ago, and Jobber said he thought we should go back to it since it's been a while, is, well, I mistakenly probably refer to it as worst, or 25 worst movies, but that's not really the way to look at it. It's the 25 movies we hate the most. In other words, and again, not low-hanging fruit that's so bad it's good, Man Whose Hands of Fate or Planet Knife from Outer Space. Movies we actually, whether someone else thinks they're bad or not, we do, and we hate them. Because there are many films that some people think are bad that other people think are good. And as you know how that goes. So we're not going to go with a bad, not just a bad movie, a hated movie. And now I'm getting an echo from your background. You got me on back there, buddy?
That was me. I got you. You're square.
Oh.
I was trying to call up on the YouTube page so I could see the chat and the screen at the same time here.
Gotcha, man. Appreciate it. So we're going to do it that way. It's going to be, so the list should actually be called, since it's a personal thing, our top 25 most hated movies. That's come up. We've got the list almost ready, Jobber, because you are the man that has wanted us to revisit that. And I think our list will be very different from last time, because that was something like 2014 or 15 that we did it. So on the old show. So looking forward to doing that. And a lot of more comics coming up soon, different comic topics. Saturday nights, I usually like to do comics, but not always. And hopefully some more Star Trek stuff coming up soon with the lovely Raquel Briggs. I'm getting with her now. We're going to do something, I'm sure. And some Doctor Who, some Blake Seven, all kind of great stuff. But tonight it's comic books. And it's not just comic books. It's very big comic books. Big comic books. And I've wondered, and I would ask the chat if any of them, if any one of you out there knows anything about these or remembers these things that, well, they get called in the vernacular Treasury editions, because Marvel called their big gigantic tabloid type format Life magazine sized comic books reprints. They called them Treasury editions, and when they started doing those, and when Marvel and DC started doing those, but DC didn't call them that, but people just kind of say Treasury editions, which is easier that way. But they're, the DC ones and the other ones from the other companies were not Treasury editions. And what we're going to do tonight, of course, I'm talking to a gentleman who has them all. I don't mean all Marvel. I don't mean all DC. I don't mean all of the other, straggler companies that did them. I mean all of them. And he has dedicated himself to having them all. I've got a pretty halfway decent bunch of the DC and the Marvel ones, and that's about it. He's got them. So, hey, bud, thank you for dropping in tonight. We do appreciate it. Give us a little bit of a background on why you love Treasury editions and what made you want to collect them all.
Well, man, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me on, man. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I've been collecting. I wasn't there at the beginning even of Marvel or DC. I didn't catch on early enough, but a couple of issues in on the DC ones when they first started doing theirs. They were just a few years ahead of Marvel. I came on, and with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, of all things, they were doing collections, reprinting the Rudolph stories they had made in the 50s in regular comic sizes, annuals. And I was captivated, and veteran comic creator from the 40s, Sheldon Mayer, wrote most of them, drew most of them. And they were a lot of fun. And it was this great big honking comic that I mean, as a kid, I mean, I was like 6, 7 years old, and I loved comics already. I probably had a couple hundred at that point. And this gigantic comic book that I found on a magazine rack just blew my mind, and started hunting them down after then. And I found the grand mall of all was the Superman versus Spider-Man, which drove me to start trying to find them all. And I gave up that pursuit several times over the years, and started finding more here and there, and finding out other companies published them. And there you go. There's the first Rudolph all new collector's edition. That's the first Rudolph from DC right there that actually published new material. The reprint editions have done so well that they got Sheldon Merritt to write and draw some new stuff, and it was a lot of fun. They brought these new books there. I love them. They're great. A lot of fans, everybody likes them. A lot of people didn't like the fact they couldn't store them. And I see somebody there, Pop Culture Avenger, Treasury edition, hard to find a nice shape, do their size. Exactly.
Yes.
Magazine. I actually worked for a magazine distributor back in the 90s. And when I did, there were no Treasuries at that point anymore, but magazine-sized comics had to be put on the magazine rack, and they got lost in the shuffle, being damaged. So they were a little scraggly out there.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting trip, and the more I find, and there was a great website, Treasury.com, that was out there for many years, and he documented everything, and he was very, very influential in finding some that I didn't know existed. And I talked to the guy, and then one day, poof, he was gone. Website's gone. I haven't. Maybe it's been the Wayback Machine. I hadn't looked in there. But he had a great site, and he had all these books. I'm thinking to myself, I've been seriously flirting with the idea of making a Facebook page about them that was a little more active. There's a few pages out there. If anybody knows of any, sing out, because I haven't come across any that were very active. A lot of people like this stuff, but the Treasuries, they just DC called theirs tabloids, because they were essentially the concept of like a newspaper edition where they folded the single large page in half and made a tabloid. That was a publishing term. And other companies called the same thing. Different ones had picture albums, comic albums, picture stories, different ones. There were a lot of cool ones, but I wanted to talk about a lot of different kinds here and different ones, but the more obscure ones to me have become so much fun, because you see the Marvel ones a lot, and there's some of the Marvel and DC ones that are actually pretty obscure and hard to find. And I think Mike and I both can say Welcome Back Cotter falls in that category for sure, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This was the big baby for me right here. This is the first time I ever really thought about it right here, though.
Oh God, that's the greatest. That is my favorite comic book of all time. Can I tell the story, Mike? Can I tell the story about the
Go for it, man. You know how much I love this book.
I tell you, man. I guess I'm 10 years old when this came out, and I'm in a store called Rose's. Doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of like a Walmart of its day. They had a magazine rack near the checkout, and I had wandered over to the magazine rack, and they had a comic book rack there, and I'd gone to the toy department. This particular store, I loved them because they didn't return the comic. They put them on a shelf in the toy department and sold them at half price once they became a month old, and therefore I could double my value. Well, I had my little $2 allowance in my hand, and I had $2 worth of comics, and was wandering back towards the front to meet my mom, and I saw the magazine rack, and I saw just the top, just the Battle of the Century, and the top of the Superman logo and the word "amazing" over the top of the magazines that were in front of it. And I thought, what is that? And it dawned on me. Well, and I reached down, I pulled it up, and I just froze. I just froze right there. It was hilarious because looking back at it, because my mom looks over at me. She's standing down by the checkout, and she's like, "Hey, hey, are you ready to go? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she actually left her shopping cart, walked over and shook me and said, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And I'm just standing here staring at this book going, they've never been together. This is the best thing in the world. And all I knew was I didn't have enough money. So my blessed mother, God love her, she had been buying me comics. She had been a comic collector and reader. Well, I shouldn't say collector. She'd been a reader and accumulator, so to speak, back in the late 40s and early 50s when she was a little girl. And she kick-started my love of comics when I was only 3 years old. She started buying them for me and reading them to me. And she said, "Okay, well, let's get it for you." So I got it, and my copy is so well read and so well loved. It's like fabric. It's not torn. It's not. There's no paper breaks. There's no tears. But the book is so soft. I had Carmine Infantino, editor of DC, publisher of DC Comics at the time, who has an editorial in the beginning of it. I had to sign my copy of it, and when I handed it to him and it folded over his hand, he thought it was some kind of weird custom version. He's like, "Is this printed on like cheesecloth or something?" You know, it was bizarre, but it's a great book. There's panels from it that are in my brain that'll go to me till I die. It's a fantastic book, and as great as that one is, when they came back 5 years later and did a sequel, they brought on great Big John Buscema and a couple of other, the creators there were fantastic. Rubenstein. But Shooter's story just left me wanting. It left me wanting a lot, and it just didn't hold up. And they tried several. The original crossover, though, before this book, was the Wizard of Oz. Both Marvel and DC were both planning on publishing a regular-sized comic of the Wizard of Oz, and which is pretty odd because the movie, was over 30 years old at that point. But Big John Buscema, they brought him on to draw the book, and at Marvel, he drew the book from a handful of stills in an old movie book and from memory. And he was halfway through it. They found out that DC was working on one, and as they, over the 3-martini lunch, they decided, why don't we publish this together? And we got Wizard of Oz from Marvel and DC, which paved the way for Superman versus Spider-Man. And as you'll see right there at the top of the book, Marvel and DC present. Yeah. I also think it's pretty cool the way they alternated when they did these crossovers. Now that one there was a DC primary, publishing issue, but Marvel produced the actual work. As you see, it's got the Marvel style logos and trade dress. So they did that, and it came out, it did real well. Superman versus Spider-Man was completely done in-house at DC. At the time, Ross Andru, who was the penciler of the book, was one of the very few people who had ever drawn both Superman and Spider-Man in the world. There's just Gil Kane, a few others, Mike Esposito, a very few people that had drawn both characters, and that's why he got chosen. He was neutral territory, both companies. He'd worked with them, he knew the character. And of course, Dick Giordano inked it, and Neil Adams put his fingerprints all over it. Terry Austin inked the backgrounds. In fact, if you look through the book, several places there's stores called Austin's in the background. And absolutely, it was pretty cool. Canadian Spider-Man says he got here guessing Spider-Man beat Superman. Actually, it was a draw. It was a draw. Had to be. Yes. You couldn't let one beat the other.
Of course. Yeah, no, of course, absolutely. By the way, Canadian Spider-Man does do whatever a Canadian spider can, like I always say. Thank you for popping in, my friend. I say that to him every time he shows up. I'm sure he's getting tired of it. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for popping in now, seriously. And I want to address something my bud, Doug Oberg, says. Doug, it was supposed to be a friggin' tabloid size. It was supposed to be. Titans, X-Men. I love Walt Simonson, and Wes does too, and I know my buddy Mark C loves him. He was not really my choice to do that X-Men Titans crossover. I mean, I would have wanted it to be Byrne or Perez, or both, but still, that should if it had been a tabloid, it would have been so much nicer.
You know why Walt did it? Or Uncle Walt, some of us called him over the years because he was such a great guest at shows down here. The reason Walt did it was he was the only artist who had a hole in his schedule big enough to produce the book. At the time, you got to think, man. At the time, Byrne had jumped over to FF. He was jumping around doing. Byrne was all over Marvel at that time. Over the years, I'm discovering more and more. Byrne helped co-create the 2099 universe. Never drew a page. Never got a byline for writing it. Helped generate the entire idea with Stan Lee. He helped do the story with it's an argument, I will say, but he helped create Venom. Allegedly, he and David Michelinie, collaborated on a story where the costume came to life and shoved the guy in front of the subway train, proving that Venom was, there all along in the costume. So Byrne was all over, and he was just too busy. And even though he was well known to have, done 2 or 3 books at a time, he was so deeply in with FF and other projects and plus at the time he was married to Andrea Braun, whose son Kieran Dwyer went on to be a fairly prominent comic artist and did a lot of independent stuff himself. And so Byrne wasn't available, and Perez was absolutely waist deep with the getting ready to do the Baxter Titans book, doing both of those. And Simonson was asked to step in, and I think he did great. My bigger issue with that book is the fact that it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's a beautiful comic, and it's got a lot of fun stuff. Seeing Wolverine and Deathstroke duke it out was fantastic. But the idea that Darkseid somehow summons a Dark Phoenix, to me, that was the beginning of the end a lot of time of the X-Men there, because what they were doing was it was a bit of pandering, because to me they should have had Brother Blood, or they should have had, another big DC, the Titans hadn't been out in their own new book that long, so they didn't have a big rogues gallery for the new version that much. So it was good, it was fun, but the story needed a lot more work, and the X-Men were completely submerged in the Brood storyline at the time, and that went on a long time. But talking about tabloids and treasuries that did not happen, I want to turn on my camera here because I want to share something with you. It's a lot of fun,
sure.
Okay?
I just wanted to say, Mark C., I'm with you, buddy. As much as I love those Superman and Spider-Man ones, I kind of like the Batman Hulk one the best. I don't know why. I just love that comic.
That's Garcia Lopez, man. That's Garcia
Lopez.
Well,
that's another big reason. Yeah, that's another good reason. Hang on a second. Let me get to our camera here. Let me do that.
There we are.
And you got hang on a minute.
You see my Pizza 77.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I wore this to a show, and a guy stopped me and he says, "Hey, great shirt. What's Pizza 77?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, pizzazz. Dude, come on."
You're on the spotlight, sir. Now you have the floor. Show us some cool stuff.
All right. Now, this is one talking about stuff that did not actually happen. You see, this one, the Spider-Man Hulk. I got a little glare there. Sorry. The Winter Olympics. This one was near the end. In fact, it's one of the very last Marvel ones they did, and it was created in 1980 when we were at Lake Placid. Of course, everyone will remember forever that that was the Dream Team. That was the year that we beat the Russians in hockey. They made movies about it. They did. It's a big event. They did a comic of it, and they were planning on doing a comic for the Summer Games in Moscow. But as everybody who was alive then knows, we didn't go. The U.S. boycotted the Olympics. So what happened? Marvel had to change their plans, because in the back of this book, you will see an ad for, I don't know, can you read that, Mike?
Oh, man.
Can you see there? We got coming this summer, Marvel Superheroes Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
They were going to have the Marvel superheroes at the Summer Games. Now, what makes this really interesting is, although that Treasury didn't happen because the Olympics didn't happen, that story did get published. And do you remember what it was published as?
I probably don't, unless it was Contest of Champions.
Exactly. The very first Marvel miniseries they ever published. They created an entire new format just for that story because they wanted to get published. One of John Romita Jr.'s first high-profile projects.
Yeah.
One of his very first high-profile projects. It was a great little thing,
Mark says, where is Wes located? I'll put it this way, Mark, not too far from you. Not too far from me either. He's in our neck of the woods, buddy. But it's a secret location. We can't, other than, I should have said like we do with Doomcock. He's at the center of the earth. Next door to the milkman. By the way, but I covered you up for 1 second so we can show here's some perspective on what it would look like if you had every Treasury edition. And I'm not just talking Marvel and DC. We're obviously talking about some Marvel and DC stuff right now. But this is what you would have if you were this gentleman here and you collected them all. Boom! That's what they might call a wad, bud.
Yeah, it's 5 foot of comics, I like to say.
Yeah, that's again these gigantic. Oh God, I love these things. Of course, I don't have a tenth of those anymore. That many, but man, these are really great. I know you have some stuff on each end there too, some cool stuff. But let's see. You do have Destroy, I take it.
Actually, I do not have Destroy because I know you see Destroy is a little bit larger format.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a tabloid.
It's bigger. It's one of the few more modern things. When I say I have them all, my claim is from 1961, which we can talk about that, also if you'd like the very first tabloid size, 1961 Gold Key, all the way through to 1985. And Destroy was right on the cusp of that, right after that, with the indie explosion. And for some reason, I missed that one when it came out. Another I do not have.
It's not a Treasury.
Full disclosure. Another I don't have is the Whammo giant comics that Wally Wood put together.
I remember
in the early 70s, which is even larger than those.
Yeah, that's not a Treasury, so
huge. Yeah, it's huge. But in 1961. When Gold Key Comics, Western Publishing, was producing material for Dell Comics, and they had been for several years, they decided to branch on their own and publish their own books. They did a lot of different formats. I have recently acquired the very first ever Flintstones comic, which is black and white with monochrome color splashed throughout in a square bound like a modern trade paperback. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick. It's kind of cool. But they were playing with formats, and they came out with, at the time, one of their biggest publications.
Oh, crap.
Huckleberry Hound. And you see, look at this. This is beautiful. I got this off of eBay a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful book. But they did that.
Nice.
They did more Hanna-Barbera. They did Yogi Bear. Different ones. And these were most people haven't even seen these. They don't even know
I never
exist.
saw them anywhere.
Yeah, and then they jumped over to Disney. Now, the Disney ones are harder to find. And Ludwig von Drake, Paul Frees character there, they do a lot of the Disney shows there, These were great. These have cardstock covers, too. They're very durable books. These were actually marketed to be put into toy stores, more so than in magazines. And very popular Disney movie at the time, Babes in Toyland.
Wow.
Frankie Avalon. So that was the fourth one. And those are great, man. They did a handful of those, and they did well, but they didn't do well enough to sell it, for years later. They came back in 1969 to promote the Jungle Book. When the Jungle Book came out, and they made a Treasury of the Jungle Book. Now they've republished it again because Disney used to re-release everything every 8 years. And when they brought it back 8 years later, they redid it again with a whole new cover. And that's the second version. It's the same interior, different. And this same story has been published in like 4 different formats, from digest all the way up.
That's amazing. I want a big shout out, by the way, to my good buddy Paulie, Latino Slant. Hey, buddy. Good to see you, my friend. I'm so happy you popped in here. Everyone go check out his channel. There's a link below, of course. And I'm a new buddy, Smart Steve 68. Thank you for popping in, my friend. And Sarah from Nexus. I didn't mean to miss you. Thank you for popping in as well. Continue, bud.
Oh, hey. Then in 1976, remember when we got King Kong back in the theater? It was Whitman Gold Key had published a King Kong comic in 1968. Completely off the grid, had nothing to do with any movie release. It was just released as a giant comic. Well, they brought it back in '76.
I remember that at TG&Y. I wanted it. I got it at TG&Y when it came out.
The corner is cut off on mine.
Oh shit!
This is my original. That's the price, and it's because my aunt, God love her, my aunt would buy me comics for my birthday. And she would cut the prices off.
Oh my God!
And it amused me to no end because you buy someone a gift, you take the price stickers off, right?
Sure.
Well, to her,
she just cut them off.
She did. She cut the price. I have about 2 or 3 dozen Marvel and DC and Gold Key comics with the prices cut off. It's
oh my God,
pretty crazy stuff.
My buddy Mark C has a sort of a question. He said we've had this discussion before, but why do I remember a second Wizard of Oz Treasury? Why does he? Because there was one.
Yes, there is. Land of Oz. Land of Oz was the second.
Land of Oz. There you go.
Adapted another one of the Baum stories, and it did not do as well. They actually had planned to do 3, and the third was never published. They didn't make it to press with that one because the sales were pretty low on the second. Because it's just like I'm sure you remember Return to Oz, the movie in the '80s with Fairuza Balk. You can't put the lightning back in the bottle, man. People have such a strong idea of, the Wizard of Oz and what it was, that they couldn't, continuations didn't work
Sure,
for
sure.
them. That was a generational thing. I'm sure had a lot to do with it. This now one company now there is one major comic company that never published a Treasury. Never did. Not a single one. And it's kind of odd because this is a company that published tons of comics, was Harvey. Harvey, at one time they had, dear God, they must have had 35 different Richie Rich comics coming out, at a time. And all of them.
Yes.
Tons of them. They never did. Another that didn't go near, but just dipped their toe in, is Archie. And my friend Carl Conrad found this one for me a few years ago. The only representation Archie ever got into. Yeah, and it's it was trying to ride the coattails what Marvel and DC were doing. They jumped in as well, and they even undercut the pricing on there. They cut theirs to $1.
Yeah, cheaper.
They could they could try to sell.
That was the only more. Archie one. The only Archie one. Huh?
The only Archie Treasury that was done. I say Harvey did none. Of the major comic publishers of the Bronze Age, Marvel, DC, Archie, Harvey, Gold Key, most dabbled in it here and there. Another interesting publisher that came along, King Features Syndicate, who was a comic strip publisher. They published, not publisher, I shouldn't say initially. They are just a syndicate that put the comic strips in the newspapers. They were trying to profit off of their properties in the late 60s, started a comic book line, pulled all their characters back from Gold Key and Charlton and everybody else. Oh, that's another. Charlton never did a Treasury. Never did one. And
okay. That's right. Yeah.
They
what if Wes would stop streaming video? I don't know. What if he did? And then we wouldn't be able to talk to him is the answer. I'm not sure what you mean. Seraphim Nexus. But if Wes did stop streaming, then I couldn't talk to him, could I? That would be the only. Maybe he meant to cement something else.
I don't know. Maybe is it causing a problem with his?
I don't know. Are you guys hearing? Yeah. Are you guys seeing and hearing everything? Okay, give me a little check there if you would, Mr. Mark C or Eric, if you would, buddies, because we never know. Get it sometime.
No, I've got my laptop over, and maybe if I've got my laptop to my left, so I can see. Okay, now you see there it comes up. It's got a little bit of a delay on the YouTube.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a lag. Yes, there is a delay. It just depends on
But Smart Steve just brought up the great one. We're talking about King Features. Like I said, they did a handful of comics, and then in 1972 they did Treasuries. Also,
yep. Wow,
Popeye. Yes,
man. Look at that.
Wow, what did he say? Just audio and would stop clipping.
I don't know what the clipping is. I've heard a little bit of it, but let's see. Sure. Let's see here. Here's one.
Not going.
Well, I'm hearing you good, so I hope you're coming in fine. Thank you. Thanks, my friends. Appreciate that. Okay, I appreciate you, but I do appreciate you letting us know that, Seraphim. Here's one for you. Did Wes get to collect the Barry Windsor Smith Storyteller series from the 90s? Yes. I have them. We both have them all. I even have the slipcase.
I did not get the slipcase. I did not get the slipcase, but I do have the comics and Treasuries on those. I like the modern IDWs. I've gotten a handful of those. The Rocketeer Jetpack edition, the John Byrne Romulans edition, different ones like that. I've got a few of those also.
Well, the tragedy of Barry Windsor Smith slipcase is that they didn't finish it, so it's a lot of room in there. Because didn't get it all done. Fill it up.
Yeah, those King
I love those.
Those King Features, though, what's crazy, they used characters they had that at the time, 1972, people would have known. Today, how many people have ever even heard of Mandrake the Magician anymore? It's
not many of us. Wow, that's cool.
I got one here. Is there anybody out there that has ever heard of this character right here? Anybody? Little Iodine.
Wow.
Basically just a amazing. Takeoff of Little Lulu or the Cats and Jammer Kids. I mean, these are all from King Features. Henry was a pantomime comic that was done, and these are actually a little larger. If you want to see for comparison,
they're a little bit bigger than your Treasury. Yeah.
These
there you go.
Just slightly larger, and which of course creates a lot of fun when you're trying to bag and board. As I have the bags, but the boards don't quite fit, so I had to work from there. But if anybody out there collects Treasuries and you want to know about the storage factor of it, that's something I've done a ton of research on. And you can get Life magazine bags from BCW that will fit the larger size ones, or you can get self-sealing bags, which I love those. the ones that have the glue built into the bag itself.
Doug Oberg, what happened very much from the series? I don't know why it didn't continue. I believe it was just at the time he couldn't finish it. Let's see, who was printing? Who printed that damn thing? I can't remember now. I have mine. I should remember that.
It was Dark Horse, wasn't it?
It was Dark Horse. I'm fairly sure. They weren't quite as big as Treasuries, and I loved it. It was good, but I don't know why he stopped. Actually, to be honest, if I did, I forgot, Doug. But I did try to find out, though. Thanks. But yeah, everyone's loving what you're showing, man. My buddy Paulie.
Run through these real quick while you're talking. Just show, like I said, all the King features, and I saved the best one for last, which I absolutely love. That's a Flash
oh my
Gordon
God, I hate you, man. I want that sucker. I'm stealing that bitch. God damn it. Hey, Mark C. Look at that, Mark.
You see, it's Dan Barry.
That's badass.
Gordon, no less.
Mark C. and I, like you, we're big Flash Gordon fans. A couple months back, we did a whole show about his whole 80-year history, and we both love him. And we had a lot of fun. And by the way, does anyone old enough to remember what Pizzazz is? The Wes's shirt there. Everyone remember that magazine? Who was in school and got Pizzazz? Anybody? Raise your hand. There's a prize. Not really.
Well, it's crazy, man. This shirt is actually, it's not just a Pizzazz shirt. It's a reproduction that I found this on a newsstand and I subscribed. And I got it every month in the mail. And back then, of course, they didn't even fold them. They didn't put them in a brand. It just came with a label slapped right on it. But when came time to renew, they sent me a card and offered a Pizzazz shirt to go with if you resubscribe. So I did, and I got it. The first subscription offer had a button. It was a metal button that says I've got Pizzazz. I've got that in my collection as well. And but the shirt, I loved it so much. I wore it to school. I wore it till it literally fell apart. And I found this on the great Retropolis Tees site last year, and I love it. Except for when I go to shows and people look at it, they think it says Pizza 77. So, you know.
Yeah, we could, or 33.
Yeah.
It could be 33 pizzas. Yeah, and Dynamite, of course. Yes, we all know Dynamite. Absolutely. Your school either had one or the other, right?
Oh yeah.
Or did they have both?
You talk about different publishers doing treasuries. Sometimes publishers crossed over from one to the other in a pretty interesting little gig. Like, for instance, Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Yes. Now,
nice.
Now, Gold Key and Whitman, they published this, and this is the movie adaptation, which they did in 3 issues in regular comics and in bags editions, etc. But there is also a variant that was published. And it has a little Spider-Man head right here, and it was published by Whitman, but distributed by Marvel to get into newsstands, because at the time, although Western had coloring books and dot-to-dot books and sticker books and little golden books, they were having a hard time getting back on the newsstand beyond comics.
It was crowded.
Yeah, so, and that was their way of doing it. They did it with that. That was about the same time they also started packaging Marvel and DC comics in 3-pack bags. And as you and I both remember, they took the DC books and removed the DC logo and replaced it with a Whitman W, which was very funny for DC Comics Presents. Looked like it said Whitman Comics Presents.
Yeah, I did. It was weird.
Remember that? Yeah.
I had a bunch of them.
Too. Yeah.
We used to get those. If anyone who went to Stuckey's as a kid in the 70s or 80s, they had these 3-packs, and was it TGNY, and other ones had those multi-packs.
Oh yeah. They're great. They did that. Like I said, that was, like I say, Marvel, distributed for them. They did that with a lot of them, but the Whitman variants and treasuries also exist. The most valuable being Superman versus Muhammad Ali. They did a Whitman variant of that. And I've never seen one. I'm online, of course, but I've never seen one in a store anywhere. But talking about the odd and fun stuff, getting into the meat and potatoes, this is the very first DC tabloid, the first limited collector's edition. And every year I dig out my Rudolph comics and I reread them at Christmas time. Just a lot of fun. And it's what got me started on this whole crazy collection. And they did so many weird things, so many fun side projects. The Marvel ones, the Spectacular Spider-Man and the Fabulous Fantastic Four. Like, calling them Fantastic Four wasn't enough. We had to say Fabulous Fantastic Four. And they collected so many great storylines, and
That one there.
they were all over the place. The last Marvel, the very last Marvel Treasury, the end of the line, was this Rampaging Hulk.
Got it. Yeah,
which
love it.
which is an odd one, but it has something pretty unique here. And you see who got his very first solo story ever in here.
Yes, and this is one of the few times that a Marvel one wasn't a reprint. That story in the back. That's a new story with not everything else Marvel did. Most of them was all reprints. All their treasuries were reprints except that one little story, right?
Sure was. They did a handful of the Winter Olympics or the Superman, Spider-Man second, and things like that. But you're right. They were all reprints. They did throw every now and again. They would toss one in. And what's Mark C asking me here?
Does Wes go to church with Joe Kubert? He would if Joe Kubert were still around, I'm sure.
We're alive. I'm not sure where that one came from, but the Bible. Oh, maybe he's talking about the Bible one. Yes.
Oh, the Bible. He's got it, buddy.
I've got the Bible one. The Bible one.
Apologies, Minion. Thank you for popping in. Good.
Now, what's cool is the Bible has a gorgeous Joe Kubert cover. I don't know if you can call that one up there, Mike, but
I can find it. Yes.
Yeah, the inside is by Nestor Redondo, a Filipino artist who took over Swamp Thing for Bernie Wrightson, and he did beautiful work. He did Black Orchid, which never really got a chance to find its audience back in the day. Great stuff. The Star Wars treasuries were a big seller for Marvel. No pun intended. Big treasuries. They did really well with the Star Wars. They split the story 6 issues into 2 treasuries, 3 each, and they sold tons of them. Every kid I knew in school had one or the other or both. And then a few years later, they came out with a great big monster-sized. There's the Bible right there. Yeah,
I'm gonna show them that one real quick. Then we'll get you back.
By all means, sure. That beautiful Joe Kubert cover.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Kubert.
And there actually was a second one planned. This is Old Testament Bible. There was actually a second Bible volume planned. They were going to do several stories, and the second one was going to be the story of Jesus. And the first Christmas.
Never got around to it.
It did not happen. There was also Mr. Redondo did a King Arthur. They advertised it in DC Comics that there was a King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table treasury coming. It never happened. Several pages of the art surfaced a few years ago on Heritage, and it was beautiful stuff. Absolutely beautiful stuff. But talking about the Star Wars thing.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah, they did. This one collects. This is a huge. This is really big. It's the all 6 issues, the entire Star Wars movie. The first one, of course. I can't bring myself to say New Hope. It just doesn't work.
No, I hate saying it too. It's Star Wars, man.
Oh man,
that's what I have. That's the one I have. There were 3 different variations on that.
Oh yeah. Like I say, the first two were were split, and this collected.
Split.
Yeah, I saw that movie in the theater 25 times, and I just can't say New Hope. It just doesn't work for me.
I was only 15 times, dude. I don't know what I was doing. But
okay, and then of course we mentioned this. Jewel here earlier. Yeah, with Travolta being his super height of his time there. They adapted a lot of stuff. They were smart. They knew what was gonna grab people that weren't looking at the comic book rack. And these things, as time went on, they were less plentiful because the print numbers went down. But they did so many great ones and so much fun. They did in 1978, Marvel also signed, or 77, excuse me, they signed a contract with Hanna-Barbera to publish some comics. And Charlton had done a dismal job printing Hanna-Barbera comics and couldn't pull it off. They were they put a lot of B and C list creators on them. For what they were fun. They went to Marvel. Marvel put Mark Evans, who had written tons of the Hanna-Barbera comics and Warner Brothers characters and such in cartoons and comics. He was the head writer and editor, and he did 3 treasuries. He did a Flintstones Christmas, and he did a Yogi Bear Easter, and that same summer we got the Laugh Olympics.
Oh.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
Smart Steve, what were you referring to? He asked, was that by Nelson Publishing? I don't know who's.
Oh no, Nelson.
Which one?
Nelson did not publish the Bible book. Nelson was a Christian book publisher. Nelson
That's right.
actually worked with Marvel on a few books in the early '90s, and they helped package the Life of Pokemon Paul and the story of Francis of Assisi. Those, I'm sure you remember those, Mike.
Yes.
We
Oh
pop
God,
those;
yeah.
they'd show up all over. Yeah,
I
Nelson
remember.
helped. They helped package those and get them into bookstores for Marvel. And then a few years later, around, I want to say it was around, oh God, 91 or 92, they did a thing called the Illuminator, and he was supposed to be. It was a religious comic and about. It was very non secular in that way. It was well done. It just didn't find its market. It didn't go over. But Nelson, they did that. No, these were DC did that on their own, and
Well, the treasuries were tough to find. Everyone who, if you were out there at that time, if you went to places that just had the spinner rack, you were out of luck. You had to go to drugstores that had magazine racks and
oh
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I could just distribution down here on those were really kind of crappy. So I got the bulk of what I have in my collection a few years later. And when I started working, yep, Eric, go ahead and get me. You always messing with me about this. When I worked in the comic business and when I was going around to cons or other comic shops and things, that was when I was finding them. And back then, dude, as I was told you before, $3, $4 a pop. Not
Mhm.
anymore. But back then, throughout the 80s, and no one really cared about them that much. And they were pretty easy to get. That's how I was able to get all of mine. And then, well,
Mhm.
not anymore, buddy.
Oh
And you've
no,
been
they're
working on
rare.
this for a long.
And I tell
You've
you,
been
I
working on
want
this
to
for a long time.
I want to share a handful of my last few books that I found in the collection. The last one I found, the elusive final one that just I kept losing eBay auctions and I couldn't find the shop. Anybody collected comics in the 70s and 80s knows that if you like Star Trek comics, forget you're not going to find them because they were Star Trek fans buying Star Trek comics. It was impossible. And while there was never a Star Trek Treasury, there's a G.I. Joe Treasury that collect the first G.I. Joe comic from Marvel. And the G.I. Joe collectors hoard the damn things. You can't find one. You see one on eBay, they go for stupid money. I got a mid to low grade copy. I think I paid $40 for it. And it's just real hard to find some of those things. And then some are hard to find because they weren't popular and they didn't sell very well.
Yeah. Yeah, and also almost every one of these, they did this and a Marvel Super Special.
Yes, yes. That was another thing. A lot of books they did that both with. You and I discussed a few years ago. I never knew there was a treasury size of The Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite pieces of comic art in the world by Al Williamson. I had the Marvel Super Special. I had the regular comics. I had a paperback
Right here.
book. They never missed a shot. There you go, right there.
And
I never knew there was a treasury of it. It was not on my radar. And ironically, I never knew there was that. They never did do one of Return of the Jedi. And
no,
that
they didn't.
surprises me because they did a super special, but not a treasury.
This is something that this was one of, not the last, but it was close toward the end of these things for Marvel. This Parks Run thing always kind of confused me. It took me just up until a few years ago to get this, and you have, of course. The Parks Run thing, and it says number 2 on it. Talk a little bit about that because it's kind of weird.
Parks Run was a distributorship, and essentially they would repackage other people's material and put it out there. They did not do comics primarily. They were. I can't really give any comparable idea of what it would be because they didn't publish their own material. They were a packager, and
Yeah.
they had distributorship because they would take other people's material and they would get it out there where people could see it. Much like we were just talking about with Marvel getting the Buck Rogers comics out there on newsstands, and the trade-off with those 3-pack bag comics or those Whitman treasuries that they got in toy stores and into bargain stores, TG&Y, Gaylord stores like that, because they had the contracts. And unfortunately, in the 60s and 70s, newspaper magazine distributors were a little shady in a lot of their operations, and they were owned by a lot of people that had connections in bad places and low places, as it were. And it was a very tough business to get around. And for instance, you and I have discussed in the past how in the 60s, Marvel was just about to throw in the towel right before Fantastic Four
Yep.
#1, and
Yep.
they signed a ignorant contract with
What a
DC
what a
Comics.
bad deal. Yes.
Yeah, they signed a deal with DC Comics to distribute their comics with them. And DC said, great, we'll distribute your comics, but we're only going to let you have 10 a month. So that's why we had Tales to Astonish with Hulk and Submariner. We had Tales of Suspense with Cap and Iron Man. They had to squeeze as much as they could into those 10 a month because they could not put out more comics. 1968, the month I was born, the comics dated of May of '68, which actually came out in February. The contract was broken, the term was up, and we got Captain America 100. We got Namor, Submariner #1, Iron Man #1, Captain Marvel #1. So many great comics, Marvel Collector's Item Classics, Fantasy Masterpieces, all these books that just exploded out of nowhere. And they started doing annuals again, and they started doing eventually the giant size. They were just tons of product. If you look at a subscription ad, that's one of my favorite things to look at comics. I love trade paperbacks and I love digital stuff, but I love the ads. I love the history that you get with it. And and these treasuries, the ads for the treasuries are great. You don't know their giant size when you're looking at them in a regular comic, and then when you get these things, they're huge. But the ad subscription ads would show 30, 40, 50 titles. And sometimes those titles they list never even were published. Never even happened. There was a giant size, what was it, Mike? It was a giant size Marvel team up that didn't happen. But they advertised the subscription for it. It makes you wonder how many people actually ordered it. But
Yep.
But
there was
the weird stuff. And when you jump forward a little bit, the last Marvel ones.
Look at that there.
Also, very hard to find. Very hard to find. Oh, speaking of hard to find, some people may or may not be familiar with the idea of double covers.
We've talked about that a lot.
You get a comic with a double cover. I actually bought a Treasury, the Best of DC limited collector's edition from Lone Star Comics online last year. Got it, opened it up. Evidently, no one had really taken a very close look at it when they graded it because it had a double cover, and I've never seen that ever before.
I've never seen it on a Treasury.
Yeah, I have a Treasury with a double cover. It's really cool. Now, this was going to be the big kick in the butt here. Okay, I've got one. I don't even know if you know this exists, Mike, but are you familiar with Richard Petty, the race car driver?
You've told me about this one before, I think.
Yes, the Racing Petties. They sold this at the track back in the 80s, and it promotes Richard Petty and his son and their racing empire. But the thing that brings this into the comics argument or controversy is what it says right there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Written by Harvey Dunn. Bob Kane created Richard Petty.
Bob Kane created NASCAR and Richard Petty and designed all their cars and everything. Yeah. It's so funny when you look at this book. Of everything that has Bob Kane's name on it, from Batman comics to the Cool McCool cartoon, or what was the other cartoon with
Crusader Rabbit? Crusader Rabbit?
No, he didn't do Crusader Rabbit. What was the one? It was a cat and a mouse, and they were in like a Batman and Robin thing in the 60s.
Oh, good God.
God, can't think of what it was. But anyway, everything Cool McCool actually looked like him. But of everything Bob Kane put his name on, this doesn't look anything like Bob Kane. This, what's sad to say is that most things that Bob Kane did actually looked like somebody put a little time into it. This looks like this guy didn't even, I don't know, maybe he was trying to do like make it look like Bob Kane really did draw it with his left hand or something, but it's pretty miserable. It's pretty miserable. And crazy, I saved this to the bottom of the stack because you said you wanted to talk about this as being the famous first editions from DC. A great project they started in the 70s. They decided we're going to reprint Marvel and DC comics, but they were going to reprint the DC famous first editions, the first issue of Batman, the Detective 27 first appearance of Batman. Sensation Comics #1, Wonder Woman, Flash 1, etc. For some reason, they skipped Green Lantern. Never understood that one.
Yeah, I never understood why they...
Green Lantern Flash never got a Treasury beyond the famous first edition with the Golden Age, and then there's a Superman versus Flash race
Superman versus Flash. Oh God, one of my favorites. Yeah.
But Green Lantern did not ever get any Treasury love. Of course, he wasn't being published for a few years there. You know, when the Treasuries first started, he was in the back of Flash. But the famous first edition, which you know, we love those, and of course they are exact duplicates, ads and all. And many people they would rip the outside cover off that said famous first edition. It looked like you had a really big comic, the real deal. But they brought it back last year for a reprint of the very first ever DC comic that was ever published.
I wish I'd have got this. You said you got a pretty good price on it too.
And it's big too. I'll pull that Hulk out there again. See, they even made it's huge. It's it's larger size there. So they did a nice job with it. But yeah, it reproduces the entire book as it was, and they did go in and give more history with it. But you see inside it has it as a perfect facsimile, which it was a black and white comic.
Yeah, the first, ladies and gentlemen, the first comic books.
Yep,
but they were
the very
first comic books were reprints of comic strips, and that's that book, which is relatively recent that he just got, is a great reproduction of those. That's amazing, man. That is
okay. Now that's the first DC trivia shot here, man. What was the first Marvel comic? First timely comic, I should say.
Put me on the spot. Marvel Mystery #1. I mean,
before that,
before that they did one.
The Submariner story in Marvel Mystery is actually a reprint.
Yeah, it's a reprint
from this comic. It's a reprint from Motion Picture Funnies Weekly.
Motion Picture Funnies. Well, it was timely though that did that then.
Yes, sure.
I thought that was mostly reprints. Well done.
And Motion Picture Funnies Weekly was mostly reprints of Mutt and Jeff and other comic strips, but it had the first Namor story, that beautiful story by Bill Everett that was so far ahead of his time. But take me off here, Mike. Show some great covers there. You've got a lot of great stuff there. This is all. I mean, I have plenty of books. If anybody wants to see a specific one, I've got them all here. You know, if you had anything you may want to ask about, but
I put a few covers up.
Covers here.
Well, we got some picks here and there. And we can always go to look for some because there's so many of them. I just couldn't put them all, and I just wanted to show. See, almost bought. No, I saw what you're saying there, Mark. Let's see here. I'll tell you one I always love. There's this wraparound cover from Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, that's the good one. That's the
that's
cover,
the good
Bob
one.
Larkin. There's an awful. Actually, you notice that's super special. That's actually not the Treasury. That's the magazine.
I know, but I always like this cover. That is. I know because I couldn't find that. I couldn't find the Treasury.
Oh God.
I'll find it.
Oh, and you might not want to see it after seeing that beautiful cover.
I think I have the Treasury, but it's been some, I haven't dug it out yet. So
here you go. Here we go. Let's pop us on there. Here we go.
There's the okay. There you go. Let's see here.
Yeah, like I say, no comparison, man. Now you know what's funny. This book was drawn by Ernie Colon, that passed away last year. He was a great artist for Harvey. He drew tons and tons of Harvey comics in their style that you could not tell until probably the mid-late 70s. He started sneaking his own style in there. And he did this. He did Arak, the Viking Indian comic.
Son of Thunder.
Yes. He did Amethyst, Princess of Gem World. He did a lot of stuff over at DC. A bit here and there at Marvel. He did Damage Control at Marvel, the comic about the guys that clean up after superheroes before New York.
Pretty good. But the Simons and Battlestar Galactica were so much better.
Oh, those were great. But he did this adaptation, and he did not have great reference. But he obviously had a time machine because he made Colonel Ty into a white guy, which wouldn't happen in the Battlestar Galactica on film until they made the revival. Yeah. So it was weird. It was different. Yeah, kind of like the way Neil Adams made Lieutenant Uhura a white woman on the Power Records,
Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks back when we did our History of Star Trek comics, and we also talked a couple weeks back. My buddy Mark C, and I, who's with us, did our favorite all-time comic book covers at 25 countdown, and as you can imagine, it killed me to only be able to put 25. But one of them was a treasure. Maybe two of them were Treasury editions. One of them was, and it was this one. Well, you know, I love this Grail wraparound cover. Obviously, the book is a reprint. But as a Legion fan, last week we had a lot of fun talking Legion. My buddy, Carlos and I were on talking all things Legion. And pretty soon, by the way, I think hopefully next Saturday, by the way, I haven't announced it yet, but Carlos and I are going to count down our top 10 favorite Legionnaires. So because we just can't stop talking about the Legion because somebody has to. No one else does. There's that one. And then there's, of course, this one, this other Grell cover, which I had signed by him, of course. I love this.
You know, it's funny. That one eluded me for years in the 70s and 80s, and I wanted it so bad. Oh my god! Because it's the wedding of Lightning Lad and Girl, and it had not been reprinted, which I thought was unusual because it was DC with their Treasuries, their tabloid editions. They had a very distinct line. You mentioned how Marvel's all reprints with the occasional special issue and that one backup. DC actually created two different lines, and it makes no sense what they did with their numbering, but what they did was they created the limited collector's edition, which was the reprints. Then they made all new collector's edition. And this being
which was new. Yeah, this is no reprint.
Fantastic.
This is one of the few non-reprint books. It's a shame it was inked by Vinnie Coletta or something, but
it wasn't served very well by inking.
Here's a nice Byrne cover from my buddy Mark C, the ultimate John Byrne fan. There you go, man. Some of these covers are just so cool. Some fantastic Kirby, the Fabulous, Fantastic Four, and even a back cover. See,
that's the greatness, man. The back covers on these are gorgeous. And you know what's funny? Back cover. Are you familiar with that back cover? Was something Kirby drew before he left Marvel and was never published. He did that. That was a presentation piece for a annual that he was going to do, and that did not get published before he left. And they saved it, and somebody found it in a drawer.
Cool. Again, I just love these. I could look at them all. I love Treasury editions anyway. But I mean, these covers. You got, good God, man, cover Kirby. More great Kirby, just because why not?
Oh man, I love this one. Now that one is interesting because it's not part of the series. It's a standalone. There are a handful. There's a Spider-Man. There's the Master Kung Fu. There and this one that are all standalones because they had the schedule was full because they were doing reprints. This was an original. This is all new stuff, and features the bicentennial. 1776 cap. Remember that? With his tri-corner hat and his sash. Great stuff.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Yep. Oh, God, yeah. Love it. These covers, man, just good God. They always had, that's the one thing, man. They always had great covers. Let's see. And like you said, they always have cool back covers because there's a back cover to that Thor. And then, oh, God, some great Kirby covers. And the back cover to that Cap book. Man, it's just, and
you remember at the time that came out, DC was publishing Freedom Fighters with Uncle Sam as a character, and I remember thinking, I guess I was 9 or 10, and thinking at the time, wow, they're Marvel's using Uncle Sam. I didn't think about the fact it was a public domain character, that anybody could publish him. I was thinking, wow, they did a crossover with the Freedom Fighters,
Yes, indeed.
2001, Space Odyssey. This book was late. Not late because they produced it late, not because Jack Kirby was slow, but because 2001: A Space Odyssey came out in 1968.
I don't know what the deal was with that.
What it was, Marvel had been sitting on the rights for 3 or 4 years, and when Kirby came on, he said, "I want to do some different stuff. I want to do some big stuff," and this happened. And of course, we had this, which very bizarrely adapted the movie, and Jack back then it was before home video, so he basically he had to watch the movie on television and make notes. He had a copy of the script, and he did what Jack Kirby did best. He made it his own. But then of course the series they did, we got Machine Man out of that, which paid off in the long run for him.
Absolutely.
The only character that was drawn in multiple issues by both Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember this one.
That Buscema cover is gorgeous.
Buscema. And
Absolutely.
Buscema interior, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great Galactus reprints there.
Gabriel the Airwalker. Gabriel the Airwalker. Those were
love it so much. Yeah, that was a great Galactus story. Well, you know, again, these covers, there's so many of them I couldn't decide all the ones to get, so I just decided to do it through the stream share thing again. And you were talking earlier about the famous first editions.
Yes.
And remember a couple weeks back, I told you about that video where the guys were raiding the this old abandoned house, and they found the copy of this one right here, as you can see, famous first editions. But they found it. I can't find one with the cover off of it. They found one without this cardstock cover wrapping.
Yes.
And when you remove this, for those who don't know, like as Wes was saying earlier,
hey, pop my camera here, and I'll be glad to show an example of that.
Oh, you got
right
okay. Oh, that's cool. That'd be even better.
Actually, I don't have that particular issue in hand, but I have the Action 1, which was the first one, the first famous first edition.
Hang on a sec here.
So you have your. This is the Treasury as it is. The back cover, they did these really cool.
Yes.
Gold duotone situations here. But when you open the book itself, you see what looks like a real Action Comics #1.
Yes, and when you pull that off, what was happening is
this cover off. Yeah.
Right, as Wes was saying, people were, if you take that off, it's a replica inside, even though it's far bigger than an old Golden Age comic book. And back then, yeah, look at that. See, back then, it's a reproduction. And back then, they were, people were trying to pass those off as the real deal from the 30s and 40s and such.
Yeah, it looks exactly like the real comic.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you got to watch those famous first editions, but they were very cool, though. I mean, it's a great stuff. We have a question for you. Our buddy Mark C says, Will West, I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you answer it. Go even bigger and join me on the dark side of collecting artist editions. Funny you should ask.
I have a few. I held off on those. You have to draw your line somewhere. I have a few. I have the Star Wars Artifact Edition with the Chaykin stuff and Golden and Simonson. I have the Al Williamson Empire one. But I recently kind of double splurged and got the Mike Golden Micronauts Artist Edition, which is gorgeous. And I got the limited signed and numbered edition as well as the regular one. I kind of bit twice and got both versions.
Sure.
Because those comics were so important to me at the time. And the great part was that was something that my friend Carl mentioned. He said, this is like, he knew Michael Golden's Micronauts, the first 12 issues, especially the first 8 issues, are just some of my favorite comics of all time. And he said, well, you finally got a Treasury-sized version of it, albeit in black and white. And he's true. It is,
Absolutely, yeah, because you're a huge Golden fan, and you always love Micronauts, and that is damn cool.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's the only artist editions I have, Mark. I haven't really gotten deep into them because the cost prohibitive. To be honest, after I bought the 2 Star Wars ones, I love them. They're great, but it's not something I pull off the shelf and look at a lot. It's like those king-size Kirby or the Intergalactus, those giant Marvel hardcovers they've done. And they're great, but they're just so damned awkward to look at. It's not something you would look at that often.
They are huge.
I haven't jumped in there, so.
By the way, thank you for that, Canadian Spider-Man. I don't know if you had to run or not, but I do appreciate the kind words, my friend, very much. But yeah, the famous first editions were kind of cool. I mean, I have most of these. Like, this one. I think I have them all. Yeah, there were just Action, Detective, Sensation, Superman, All-Star.
The Superman was the last one. Remember, they brought it out when Superman 2 happened. When Superman 2, the movie, came out, that was when they did the Superman #1 and that Superman 2 Treasury, as well as I'm wrong. The famous first edition came out with the Chris Reeve Treasury that they did, the one with Chris Reeve on the cover, that was as much a movie magazine as it was comics. That one, it was in '79, or '78. But yeah, the Superman 2, that was Roy Thomas's return to DC. When that Superman 2 book and the Fortress of Solitude, those were great treasuries, great big books. Yep. Storage is an issue, but as you saw in the picture, I've got a great big shelf that I literally designed that way on that bookcase to put treasuries in when I only had about half that many. And I always said, well, I'll fill it up one day, and I sure did.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these here, like the one you were just mentioning, let's see here. I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that was Superman. Again, they did a lot. They did, of course, the Superman Spideys. They did let's see what Mark's saying here. Wouldn't buy it on the microscope. If they ever do a Michael Golden, the non-artist edition, it will be mine. Well, you never know. They might.
You know, the NAM was great. It was a lot of fun, but it was just before Michael Golden broke both hands in a horrible drawing accident. And that was horrible to say. Oh my God! Superman salutes the bicentennial.
Yeah, I love this book.
Why do you love that book? Because Superman is not in that book.
I know. I love the cover. Okay, I misspoke.
Superman
I love the cover.
Not in that comic.
He's not in the book.
It is all Tomahawk reprints, stories from the Revolutionary War. And so many people I know, they love that cover, and I bought that book and I hate it because there's no Superman in it. I meant to say the cover. Yeah, there's like one Superman story in the front, one like 8-pager from the Golden Age, and that's it. Yeah,
yes, it is annoying, isn't it?
Now, if you look, Mike, you see the other Superman treasury with the gray background, the painted cover there. I don't know if you can see in that same screen.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Where is that one? I was talking about. Not this one.
The one right. Yeah, the one right before. Let's see. It was in the. Oh, okay. The far left. There you go. The far left. See the. Oh, we scrolled.
See, maybe this might help. Oh, there we go.
There we go. That one, yes. That one.
That's amazing.
That is a painting that was done as a commission for DC Comics back in the 50s and hung in the DC offices for years and years. It hung on the wall, and they got the bright idea one day, why don't we put this on a cover? And the fans who don't get to come up here to the bullpen and see it, and let us put it on a comic. And they put it on there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful rendition. The artist was unknown for many years. I'm embarrassed to say his name is on the tip of my tongue, and I'm not there. I'm sure somebody could look it up really quick.
I can't remember either, because I used to think it was. Oh God, I don't know. We'll find out one day, folks, because I've read all about the thing, and now I'm equally embarrassed. I can't freaking remember the guy's name because he wasn't a standard artist.
Well, I was wondering George Wilson, who painted a lot of those great covers for Gold Key and Dell, but it's not. But the other interesting part about this painting is that it disappeared when DC was moved. They moved from place to place, and they at one point when they were getting ready to move right before their final shutdown to go out West Coast, the painting disappeared, and it was missing for several years, and then it showed up on auction. I don't remember if it was Heritage or Sotheby's or somewhere. It showed up on auction, and the provenance was found. And at first, a lot of people got their noses bent out of shape thinking it was stolen, and it turns out that it was actually given to someone by someone at DC, and it was all completely legit, and it went for pretty crazy money. It was a piece of history hanging in the studios there in the what am I trying to say? Not studios, not Marvel's the bullpen. What was the DC? They call it DC dugout. What was their
the dugout? The bullpen.
Remember the
they all
DC,
have weird names.
DC dugout? Yeah. Oh, Muhammad Ali. I tell you. Do you remember when Spider-Man made fun of this comic because it took so long to produce this book? Ali's people kept kicking it back and kicking it back. They would not allow it to be published because they they kept making changes and making more changes. And we don't like the way, the champ's face is drawn here. He's not throwing a punch natural here. They jumped around. They took a couple of years to publish this damn thing. And by the time they did, Ali was no longer the champ. He wasn't the heavyweight champion of the world anymore by the time that they actually published it. So Spider-Man made a gag. They had a woman in a Spider-Man comic approach him in Central Park right after he beat the crap out of Sandman or something, and approached him, and she looked a whole lot like Jeanette Kahn, the publisher of DC. And she said, "Hey, I have this great idea of a comic book with you fighting Leon Spinks." And he said, "Are you kidding, lady? You do that, by the time you get everything together, he wouldn't be the champ anymore." Made a little dig at him there. But I tell you, that's a bizarre comic, man. Superman getting crap beat out of him by Muhammad Ali. I mean, who would ever think that,
It's weird now, but good God, it was one of my favorite works by Adams. It was one of my favorite works by Neil Adams.
Oh, man. The original cover, that cover is fantastic with the, hundreds and hundreds of celebrities all throughout the crowd, many of which they had to modify. In fact, John Wayne is in the very front. And after Adams did this cover, they realized, oh, wait a minute, we better get permission from all these people before we put their likenesses on here. Well, some of them they had to change, John Wayne being one of them. His people refused. They said, no, we do not want Wayne's likeness being used on this comic. So they basically started.
Yeah.
Mark, here we go. H.J. Ward. That's it. Exactly. That's who painted the Superman painting.
I know I could count on him.
Yeah.
I know I could count on you, bro. Way to go. Mark C. in the pinch, man. Thanks for looking that up for us, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was God. Yeah, he's the man there. There we go. I wanted to pull a bigger picture, a bigger version of that up, because I just love it so much. This big
Oh yeah, like I said, you can see so many people. I mean, in the very foreground, in the bottom right corner, you've got Jimmy Carter and Sonny Bono, for God's sake. I mean, looking over to the left, you see we have Wolfman Jack, and we have so many people there that were just all celebrities of the day. And originally, this cover was done by Joe Kubert. There exists the original art, the line art that Joe Kubert had done it, and is much, much more pedestrian. As much as I love Kubert, don't get me wrong, he's one of my greatest favorite artists of all time. But it is this is cosmic. The Kubert one was, you felt like you were in a dingy old gym somewhere that 1,000 people had crammed into to stand around and watch this fight. Whereas they open the ceiling up and show the planets above in this one.
Hail, the wonderful, beautiful Raquel Briggs. Thank you for popping in, my dear friend. I am just absolutely honored to see you here. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. And thank you again, Mark C., for that. Yeah, look, if you can, you have to. I used to stare at this cover for hours. Of course, inside the book, they have a diagram that tells you.
That key tells you who's who, right?
Yeah, names, the little chart thingy. Mm-hmm. But, it is kind of fun. It is just a fun cover. This is a really ridiculous story.
It is. But it's Superman's powers away.
Yeah. It's so freaking dumb, man. But it's a fun, dopey, fun
hardcover, a reprint of this too. And in the last 10 years, they did a nice hardcover reprint of this. They did two versions. They did a direct reprint in Treasury size, and then they did a magazine size one. They're about to release hardcovers of the Amazing World of Superman Treasury and of the Superman versus Wonder Woman Treasury, which has some of the most beautiful Jose Luis Garcia Lopez art you'll ever see. Fantastic.
Yes, this is the Superman Wonder Woman Treasury is a great one. That's a better cover of it. I should have had that one loaded. But yeah, this is just a great book. I truly love it.
When the hardcover was announced, someone on a Facebook group decided to take the Maestro to task for Wonder Woman's body position on that cover, saying that what is she doing? Is she about to kick Superman? Is she well, what is her? That's not a natural fighting position. And I'm like, I'm sorry. If you try to call out Garcia Lopez on anything, you really, really better have your stuff. Because that guy, there of all comic creators I've met, so many great, nice people, wonderful. I mean, we've met people at shows that they took a lot of time with us and spent time. I sat with Murphy Anderson, and I've talked to Gil Kane and Nick Cardy, so many of them that aren't with us anymore, Erwin Hasen, Dave Cockrum. But Garcia Lopez was the quietest, most humble human being to have such amazing talent. And two of the greatest treasuries that were ever done, or tabloid editions, because he worked for DC, were this one and the Batman versus Hulk. And he completely produced those on his own, and they're gorgeous. Now, not to take away from Rich Buckler. Rich Buckler catches a lot of flack for, being a swipe artist off of Kirby or off of Neil Adams. But Rich Buckler, the Superman versus Shazam that he did, that book, oh my God, I remember as a kid, that blew my mind. That story was very, very science fiction, very cosmic, and it was a big story befitting the Treasury format. That's the one thing about the new material, Mike, is that you look at some of the reprints and you think, oh, it's great to see these comics in this large size, but they don't always work. The Howard the Duck one comes to mind. The Howard the Duck Treasury. It's great. It was a way they could throw those stories out there again in a reprint quickly, because they sold out allegedly. It turned out they're still in warehouses, not delivered. But it was a great way to throw that out there. But the material really didn't live up to that format. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now the Superman versus Shazam was a new one, so it was drawn to fit that format. Some of the other Shazam ones, which of course used to cash in on the TV show at the time with Jackson Boswick and Mark Davey, they reprinted the Golden Age stuff. They didn't do any new, and Golden Age material works in a large format to a great degree. But a lot of the late silver and bronze, Kirby works fantastic. Kirby stuff looks beautiful in a large format, because he drew it that big and it worked. But some of it just didn't quite, it didn't have that life. It didn't need that big format didn't help it. That's a problem that a couple of the modern ones, we haven't really talked about that. But when Alex Ross started doing those really slick square bound treasuries that were more prose with paintings than they were comics, and then of course he did a Justice League, and then there's a Brian Hitch Justice League. There's the Superman Fantastic Four with Dan Jurgens. They were fun stuff, but there's a disconnect. Even the people who love this format and these books, they've been drawing comics in smaller size. They have to realize you got to turn it up to 11, like Spinal Tap says. If you're going to draw a Treasury comic from scratch, you got to make it big. Are you familiar with the Rob Liefeld Treasury from a few years ago?
Somehow I don't think
the Bible story. I'm sorry, not Rob Liefeld. Eric Larson. Eric Larson did.
Yes, I have one of those.
Stories. He did the Bible stories in Kirby style in a Treasury. He drew those knowing they were being done for the large format, and it explodes. It absolutely explodes off the page. It's beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. And different ones work, different ones don't. But these hardcovers of them, they're a lot of fun too. I enjoy them.
Yeah, you have all the hardcover ones now? Or,
I'm still waiting on the Wonder Woman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Amazing World of Superman. Both. I'm still waiting on those two. Or two I don't have yet.
Oh, okay. I was trying to find. I don't know what happened. I thought I had the Batman Hulk one teamed up. Pulled up from earlier. I love that book, and it's. I don't know what it is. I guess it's such a crazy idea. Batman.
I tell you. But it was, and it was so out there, and even funnier was when they did the second Superman Spider-Man, where they had Wonder Woman go up against Hulk, and that was even more of a head scratcher. But Batman and
She fought,
Hulk, yeah, a lot of people
she,
it catches flack.
but she fought Spidey and Superman and Hulk had a fight, which was I thought kind of fun. And but
Mm.
if you look right here, if I look, this is Batman fighting Hulk and kicking him and knocking the wind out of him. Garcia Lopez, this book was just terrific. This might be my favorite Treasury of them all, man. I don't know why. I'm talking in terms of story, and as we both talked about here, most of them are reprints, so I'm not counting like a reprint thing, But as far as the ones that were new stories, which is again it's a handful, this might be my favorite one. I mean, I love I'm totally with you, Hal. The first Superman Spider-Man team up is the greatest thing ever made in the history of the universe. But as far as my favorite story and art, I think this one might be it.
The Superman versus Spider-Man has so many. To me, they just blow away double spreads. The shot where they're yelling at each other like street thugs across the tops of buildings, or when Superman finally throws a punch and hits him and pulls it at the last second and still knocks Spider-Man halfway across Manhattan.
Oh, so fantastic!
And he actually went through a building. Remember that he goes through an art museum. He goes in a window, through a piece of art sculpture, back out another window, all just in a prone position, flying through. Or that great 2-page spread when they go to Africa. They're trying to find the location of this meteorite landing. They go to Africa. Spider-Man can't fly. It wouldn't look good. So Spider-Man makes skis out of webs, and Superman pulls him on a ski rope and across the sky. It's cheesy fun. Oh my
it's so
God. Great. It's just cheesy, silly fun. Yeah.
That is probably, I'm not probably, this is easily got to be Ross Andrews' finest work. And I know I have a lot of inkers on that thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It was still great. That format is pretty freeing for an artist.
That was one of the last works, I believe. Now, this is just from my eye. That Giordano really put a lot of it in himself and didn't use Frank McLaughlin, because he used Frank McLaughlin as his ghost for years. In fact, it's been said that the Byrne Superman comics that Dick Giordano inked never saw Giordano's desk. They went straight to Frank McLaughlin, who inked them all. As opposed to a lot of them where Giordano inked a few faces or a body here and there, and he passed it off. But he was the publisher of DC Comics at the time, and our editor-in-chief of DC Comics. He didn't have as much time, so he passed it off to anybody. And McLaughlin was a great inker. My God, I love him over Dick Dillon on JLA and on Irv Novick on Flash. Fantastic stuff. But when you look at Superman versus Spider-Man, Giordano's fingerprints are all over it. Oh, there's the shot when he pulls the punch. But
I love that.
He does. Spider-Man's kind of doing this like funky chicken thing there where he popped. But
I love it so much.
But yeah, but it's got that. But Adams, was in the studio, continuity of studios with Dick Giordano, and the legend goes that Giordano left the pages on his desk when he went home to Connecticut every night. Neil Adams worked late because he lived in Manhattan, and he went to the pages and, in a typical Neil Adams fashion, said, "Oh, gee, Ross Andrews screwed this head up here. Let me fix that. Oh, he screwed this leg up here. Let me fix that." And he went through and he tweaked. He used an electric eraser. He pulled it off. He put down new stuff. And he also went through and put the white outline around the figures. If you look through that book, you'll see, okay, a perfect example is right there on Superman's foot. You can see the white outline around Superman's foot to make it pop off the page, almost Viewmaster style, And that's all through the book. There, he uses that to add a 3D element to it that was not in the original pencils. And as I said, Terry Austin inked a lot of the backgrounds because he was Dick Giordano's assistant at the time.
He did. This is just spectacular stuff.
Oh yeah, this shot here, Spider-Man's web snaps in midair where he's pushing such a force. We should say one thing. We should give away the spoiler here. I hate to say it. I mean, it's spoiler. But the reason Spider-Man can do this to Superman is because Lex Luthor shot Spider-Man with some juice.
A red sun. A red sun.
Yeah,
thing, right?
He brought up some red sun energy and fired him up, and therefore he had a little bit more behind his punch. to take Superman down the way he did, but it wore off, and that's how he ended up kind of.
Well, here's my favorite scene. One of my favorite things in all of comic books is this stuff right here. For those who don't know, it wears off, as Wes had said. So Superman's just finally got tired of getting bounced around after things like this. You know, he gets knocked and he flies back after Spidey and whatnot. And then let's see here first. As you can see, he's had it. And then I love it. I love these panels. It's so silly comic book stuff, and it's what we grew up on. His fist is flying at ridiculous speed. Now it's my turn. Great Krypton, what am I doing? He thinks to himself. If this blow connects, it will kill him. He stops it at the edge of Spidey's nose. I have to pull my punch. Hope it's in time. And although he does pull it in time, the wind blast.
Yeah.
Yes, the wind blast, the shockwave knocks Spidey 50 freaking miles throughout the city. This is one of those fantastic. This is why we love comic books, folks. This is what it's all about. Superheroes that we love meeting for the first time and then getting in a fight, and they're going to be buddies later. You know it.
It's all a big misunderstanding. Yeah, it's an episode
big misunderstanding.
You know.
Oh God, this is such a wonderful comic book.
It's so funny when this came out. I had a cousin who was about 5 years younger than me, so he would have been, probably 4 or 5, and he was over at the house. He was playing with my Mego figures, and I had my Superman and my Spider-Man Mego was my all-time favorite, and he had my Spider-Man Mego, my Superman Mego, and I was showing him in the comic what happened there and the way when Superman punched him and knocked him across the island. And I will never forget my cousin. He says, "Oh, like this," and he has Superman punch Spider-Man, and then he just threw Spider-Man across the room, just hurled him across the room into the wall. And I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty accurate." Yeah.
Oh,
that was pretty accurate to what happened in that comic, right?
Yeah. This is what it's all about. This is why we love comics. Why we love this. This comic book here, again, and you said it's your favorite comic book of all time. In a sense, it might be mine too, because this thing right here, when I was seeing the ads, this is 1976. I'm a little less than 12 years old before this came out. Everyone remember the bicentennial? What a crazy time that was! What a wonderful year that was. And I'd see the ads for this. My 12-year-old so-called brain could not even comprehend it. Even I knew at that point, because I've been buying comics for a long time. Well, in my head anyway.
I want to point something out.
I didn't get it. Quick. Go ahead. Sure.
I want to point something out. Forgive me just a second before you continue. Notice the colors. Notice the Spider-Man blue and the Superman blue are not the same.
Yes. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's right.
That stands out to me on that cover. It stood out at the time. Marvel's color was always so much more brilliant and so much more richer and fuller at the time. And DC, their stuff was much more safe and muted. They had, I don't say pastel, but their colors were softer and lighter. If you notice, Superman's blue is a lot lighter than Spider-Man's. And Romita Sr., another one of my personal heroes of all time, just great guy, God love him. He told me, I asked him point blank, what made Spider-Man's blue different than the rest of the blue in all of the comics? And he said, we did that to make it stand out. And he pointed out that in the famous first clone story with Spider-Man fighting his clone in Spider-Man 150, 151 in that story, if you'll notice, the clone has a darker blue even than Spider-Man. And he said we had to be careful because we didn't want to give away the farm and show two different Spider-Mans and let the reader be able to figure out who was winning and who was losing the fight. Because these two characters, we wanted the reader to have it be ambiguous as to who was actually winning. And the Spider-Man blue, it's a unique take. It's an additive. It's a mixture, a little off from the standard, in which Superman is a little softer than that. So neither one are true 100% blue. It's just an odd observation,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, good one too. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Lord Troth, let's see here. Clobber Times, we need to have an all-star comics Justice League All-Star Squadron discussion someday. Absolutely, love those all, man. And of course, what Smart C said after that. What about Liberty Legion? He threw that in there. Well, you can certainly throw them in there if you like those old groups. So, anytime, buddy, I would love it, man. Absolutely, because I love those things. I love those groups.
Oh, those were fun books. They were great. That
Yeah.
All-Star Squadron, man, that book came out, it came out huge. I mean, at the time, Roy Thomas had just come to DC, and then, stepped down from Marvel, God, 5-6 years before as editor-in-chief, maybe even a little longer than that, and had just been freelancing, doing Conan and etc. like that. The Conan movies were out. He was living on the West Coast. He and Jerry Conway, helped develop the Conan movie scripts and a few other things. And he went to DC and they put him on. It wasn't a smooth fit at first. They put him on that Superman Fortress of Solitude. It didn't work. They put him on Wonder Woman and with Gene Colan, and that really didn't work. And then they brought him into they gave him carte blanche to do his own stuff, and that's what we got. All-Star Squadron and Arak. I actually asked him one time at a con, I said, did you create those two books specifically so your two books would be the first on the order form every month? When comic stores had older comics, and Mike, you had your own shop. I had my own shop years ago. When you order comics, you start down the list. You hit your X-Men's, you hit your Batman, you hit your whatever is your big titles, and that's where you put the beef of your monthly budget. But then you look at everything else. Well, if your book looking at it alphabetically, All-Star Squadron and Air actually at the top. So I asked him if that was on purpose, and of course, plausible deniability being what it was, he said no. But Roy did a lot of great stuff. But All-Star Squadron with Rich Buckler right out of the gate, and then went from there with Joe Kubert covers. And remember that fantastic crossover they did with the Justice League, and had George Perez doing covers there. Some beautiful stuff. There's only one Justice Society Treasury. Staying on topic here, there's only one Justice Society Treasury, which is the reprint of All-Star.
All-Star, and that's it. That's a shame.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They did
that's
not
a
get
shame.
any others. You know what would have been a great one was that that fantastic origin of the Justice Society with the last cover that Joe Staton did in 1978. There was a DC special issue, remember? Had the JSA versus Hitler on the cover. That would have been fantastic as a treasury. I often wondered if that should, was going to be a treasury.
One day,
Super Friends.
Well, one day we will go to the other side of the spectrum, folks, and talk about these little things here, from gigantic comics to little ones, because you got a pretty good digest collection, right?
I've got about 60% of the DC ones. I don't have a lot of the Marvel ones. The Marvel ones, they didn't jump on the bandwagon until the early 80s, and by that point, my money was going different places, and it didn't quite go into the digest. And plus, the choice of stuff they were reprinting wasn't for me. But the DC ones were great. They did a lot of cool stuff. I've got about 60% of them. The ones that ironically I like a lot more, honestly, are the Walt Disney Comics Digest and the Golden Comics Digest, and they reprint a whole lot of other stuff that wasn't seen elsewhere. But there is a
Hail, Mark with a C. Hail. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. The great thing about those there is actually, do you remember when Dave Cockrum was redesigning the Legion costumes in the early 70s, and he was right before his tail end, he left, he designed a few more, and then they had other people come in, and they had Keith Giffen, who was new at DC then, and they had, of course, Mike Grell and others, and there's a handful of pages of new Legion costumes that are in that Legion treasury, not the wedding one, but the other one you mentioned. And there's a few pages in there that show Legion costumes, and there's a really bizarre Kirby-esque element lad wearing a green and black that's very different than the green and blue he ended up with. But the point is, I have no proof whatsoever, but it looks a lot like an early Keith Giffen when he was copying Kirby. But those pages were only ever printed in the Treasury. Then a Legion Digest reprints them. So those pages, to my knowledge, were never published at comic size. They were in the largest format and the smallest format, but never anything in between. Just weird little trivia there.
Oh, no, we love that kind of stuff. Yes, Lord Thoth, my buddy Lord, he says, I have a large digest collection as well, all DC and a handful of the Marvel ones. Yeah, I don't have too many of the Marvel ones. I have a pretty big, I don't know my percentage like you do on my DC ones, but it's pretty up there. I don't know,
Well,
so I got
the part about the digest with me is the older I get, the harder they are to enjoy because of my eyes.
Oh, yeah, I just like to have them. I can't read them.
Yeah.
I can't read them. But without a micro friggins, like the magnifying glass. Yeah, no shit, man. But yeah, but still, they're cool to have.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah. But yeah, I got a bunch of those. Most of them are in good shape. Again, it's not like they're expensive. You don't bump into them.
They're
that
hard
much
to find
anymore.
in good shape. The digest,
yes,
just like the Treasury, they're hard to find in good shape because a lot of them got folded up in people's back pockets, and for that reason, it's difficult to find them.
Well, what kind of drove me crazy was when they stopped Adventure Comics, like 492 or 3, whatever, and then for through 493 something through 502 or 3 or something like that, they were all digest size Legion reprints, which was kind of weird. But I got all those, of course, and I'm sure you did too.
Mark C just said, "Call me when you have all the Archie digest." I hate to tell you, Mark, but you'll never hear me calling you then. I have a handful of those, but that's a cottage industry with Archie in those digests, isn't
it? Yeah. Does that mean, Mark C, that you have all of those? Are you saying you have all those, dude? Let me know. Because man, that's something. Let's see. You might have talked about this comic, but one of my favorite oversized comics is the Best of DC Comics Volume 1. That's I think that's with a Superman, a Neil Adams Superman cover, is it not?
Yes, it is.
I will see if we can find.
That one's got some great stuff in there, man. That's got an Alex Toth story called "Dirty Job" that it just has to be read to be believed.
Well, let's have it. Let's see if I can find that picture for you there, Mark. We'll just see. DC. Let's see. If I can find it. Probably find it. Yeah, there we go. I think we can find a little shot of it there, guys. I have that one. It's a great cover. I believe, Mark, with a C, you would be referring to that one. And hang on, let me get the picture up the screen. Sorry. I believe that would be the one you refer to, Mark, with a C. I did do. Let's see. What they're tiny. Lord Thoth. Okay.
We've
yeah. Yes.
You'll let me give me a chance to show something here. Show off something.
Oh, okay.
I'm showing off anything here. Let's see.
Do what you gotta do. Hang on one second, man.
Here we go.
All right. Hang on a sec, dude. Let's see here.
Okay.
Let me get rid of this. Let me get that up there. Oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
Now the back cover. Another one of those
where the Adam's greatness there.
Never seen much, but this is what's cool. This is I mentioned earlier on mine. When you open it up, there's another cover.
That's the double cover.
That's the double cover Treasury, and I'd never seen one before. It's amazing that it's any publishing is going to do that, but yeah, you've got Night of the Reaper. I mean, the Batman story that is just amazing, but Dirty Job, The Demon Within, Jim Aparo, different ones in this book. It's got some grace. I mean, if you're a Jim Aparo fan, you've got to find this story. I mean, it's just above and beyond. Truly is.
Oh my God, dude! Yep, I need to pull mine out and look at that thing again. Wonder
Oh
if I
yeah,
have a double cover.
the actual comic has a that appears in is House of Secrets, I believe, and it might include a cover. But there's a great Silver Age Superman reprinted in here. Classic,
do you have any?
iconic shot.
Oh God, yeah. Well, that's great. Do you have any of the Disney digests? My friend Raquel Briggs used to love those, and she had them in the 70s. You got any of those?
Yes, I do. Actually, I can turn around right here and go
32
right
flavors.
there.
Hey, buddy. Nick Weiser. Hey, good to see you, my friend. Hang on, let me get that off of there.
There's one that now you see him, now you don't. Right there. I've got a.
Hey,
got
Raquel.
a few here. Yeah.
Just for you, Raquel Briggs, the lovely Raquel Briggs.
Here.
Thank you.
Actually, you can see I still got the sticker. I just got this 2 weeks ago from Lone Star Comics with the Robin Hood. And what's funny, Gold Key, when the Robin Hood movie came out in '73, they didn't know what to do with it. They did not do Treasury. They did Jungle Book. They did this in the Walt Disney Comics Digest. And
weird.
It is story. Now, what's really fun, they did an ongoing comic reprinting the same movie adaptation, but then they also did these, what we would later come to call graphic novel versions. They have square bound edges, cardstock covers, and just absolutely beautiful color reproduction inside. And these are all original stories. Great stuff.
Wow. Stuff. So, Raquel, do any of those ring the bell for you? By the way, again, 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. I'm glad to see you, my friend. Mark C. said, oh, cool. Does any of those ring a bell, Raquel? Well, I hope so. Mark C. Yes. Aren't the big guy and Rusty books at Treasury size? They're big. Were they Treasury size though?
They are large. They're about the same size as the IDW Treasuries. They are.
Okay.
They're pretty big. You know, if we can do, we're talking about them. We've got them here. This the final issue of Adventure when they were.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
They came.
Flashlight under the cover with those. She loves those.
Now, okay. Now here's a great one. This is another one that you see this story. Do you remember the story here with Shanzar? This alien Superman, the giant robotic Superman. That was in the Superman Spectacular DC Special Series. That was intended to be a Treasury. And if you look at the comic, it is the longest ever single issue Superman story ever published in the Bronze Age or Silver Age. And it's a great story. It meanders quite a bit. I'm not gonna lie, it goes on a bit. It's Marty Pasco, and Pasco could get that way. He'd go on for a
rest
bit.
His soul.
His stories were fun, but he did drag them out a bit. But beautiful Kurt Swan art, and they reprinted it in that digest.
You get some great compliments on your collection, brother, which is impressive, man. That's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Raquel loves those. She loves seeing those things.
Oh, I tell you, there's actually I've got a. This is just a drop in the bucket, so to speak. You know, I got an entire shelf up there of treasury. Dennis the Menace treasuries. You're talking about the Archies. The Dennis the Menace treasuries are just about as bad in its era. And of course, Harvey did a bunch of treasuries too, different ones.
Well, this is nothing compared to his comics collection, folks. This is just these are the oddities, I guess. Because you got
hiding in the bunker with my books. That's me. Yeah.
But you got quite a few of those little things.
Discussing the ugly real world we're in right now, I work in a job that falls under the essential worker category, so I haven't really missed any work. I've been very, very fortunate and blessed that way. But a friend of mine had told me, he said, you know, that if you were one of the people that got furloughed or quarantined, had to get stuck at home, he said, you wouldn't ever get bored, would you? And I said, probably not.
Yeah, so you'd have a little bit of reading material, bro.
And you know, the thing is, my stuff's all over. Stuff is all over because when I was a kid, I didn't start buying. I think you and I have discussed this before. I didn't start buying the same comic every month until Star Wars. I really, really, I like Spider-Man. I bought the Marvel Tales. I like them more so than Amazing Spider-Man at the time. Or I bought Superman. I bought Batman. I bought Robin Hood. I bought Bugs Bunny. Whatever grabbed my eye, got my 25 cents or 35 cents or whatever it was at the time until Star Wars. When Star Wars came out, I had to have those every month. So when you look at my collection from the beginning, from when I first started getting, let's say when I was 3 years old, my mom started buying the comics. And
thank you,
my stuff all over the place. It's all over the place. And because I liked different things. And I remember kids in school, we'd trade comics, and I would have, in my stack, I'd have Marvels and DCs and Gold Keys and Archies and Harveys and Dennis the Menace, whatever. And other kids would just have, superheroes, or just have mystery titles or war titles. And, I got teased a good bit. Like, why do you have Andy Panda? Why would you buy that baby comic? Like, I like Andy Panda. It's fun, it's different stuff, man. I mean, comics I loved, Smokey the Bear comics, or Woodsy Owl, or just crazy fun stuff. That's what it's about to me. Is that it's such a people talk about how nowadays there's no diversity in comics, and really in the last 5 to 10 years the diversity has come back. I'm not a new comic fan by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but if it gets people reading and enjoying them and takes them back to the stuff we love, that's great. Because you can go to a comic shop, there is romance, there is mystery. Westerns are about the only thing that doesn't exist anymore. Everything else is still out there, has come back. But back in those days, man, you remember, you'd go to the rack and you'd look and see Ringo Kid next to Sergeant Rock, next to Young Romance, next to Winnie the Pooh, it'd have everything there. It's great stuff.
Well, as we close out, tell us a little bit about, and everyone appreciates you. Everyone's really loving what you're doing, man. You're a big hit, brother. Good. We've known each other for almost 40 years now, bud.
Damn near, yeah.
Damn here. Tell him, listen, because he is, and then when I say he's a hardcore collector, that's what this gentleman is. He, that interesting thing you were telling about, and I'm talking about, you're trying to collect every comic book from the month the month you were born.
Yes.
Is that not correct? How is that going? Because I've never heard anyone do that before. I don't think
it's gotten a lot easier because of Mike's Amazing World, which is a fantastic website.
Yes.
If you've never seen it, the Wayback Machine, as I call it, that he has on there, you can pick a month and a year, and you can see every comic published by everybody, and you can look on there and see everything, and there's a lot of great stuff there, and you can see every Richie Rich and everything that came out. Well, I got the idea that I was going to buy I have a spinner rack. At one time, I worked for a magazine distributor years and years ago, and at one time I actually had about 14 spinner racks in my backyard, and sold them all for $20 to $40 a pop, except for one. I kind of wish I had hung on to more of them, but I like this. It says Smokey and the Bandit comic. No, if there had been a Smokey and the Bandit comic, I would have owned it, though, Eric.
You would have it
for sure. Yes, that's another.
That's
a whole other ball game. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
he's a huge Smokey and the Bandit fan.
Almost made that run one time, right, when we went to Dragon Con. But anyway,
thirsty in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, we didn't go to Texarkana, but we had a lot of fun
Atlanta, many times
out. Yeah, but no, you see, I'm distracted there. I ran off the end of the road. Where was I going?
No, that's okay.
We're talking about the birthday thing. Yeah. I got to looking at what was out there, and I actually didn't have any of those comics. Obviously, I was born that month. I decided I was going to go. A lot of people do that collecting of their birth month. They pick the cover date. I decided I wanted to fill a spinner rack that was, when I came along, what would have been there when I was born. Unfortunately, that wasn't a very expensive month, because we mentioned earlier when Marvel got their own distribution deal, that's when Iron Man #1, that's when Submariner #1, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it wasn't an easy pull. It wasn't easy, but I focused on getting the expensive stuff first. And now I'm just going after a lot of the gold keys, and there's the Marvels and DCs. I've got about 90% of them, and everything else is a tough pull, because it's hunting these things down. Thanks to mycomicshop.com and eBay, it's not difficult. I did get just as a little fun here recently, the last key that I needed of the bunch right there.
Okay, let me get
the last expensive one I needed of that. I didn't have an Iron Man #1, and I needed that one. And it's been a fun little ride though. Collecting in a theme is always a challenge. The Treasury collection, a much bigger challenge because, as mentioned, the condition. I will caveat that my collection are not all near mint copies. Anybody who has a full set of treasuries and tabloids in near mint has way more money than I'll ever see in my life. A lot of fun stuff, but if you can theme collect, to me it's more rewarding than trying to say I've got every issue of Amazing Spider-Man or I've got every issue of Marvel Team Up or whatever book you choose. To me, saying, "Hey, I'm going to get every comic that came out the month I was born," that's fun. That's a blast. That's an interesting thing. I know people that collect covers of surfing. I know people who collect covers of the old Injury to Eye panel that was mentioned in Overstreets. I know people that collect covers of just oddball stuff or comics with the Beatles. And a theme collection can be a lot of fun. I got on a weird kick not too long ago. I started buying comics with purple backgrounds. I can't even describe it, Mike. It was just a weird thing. I realized it was a Fantastic Four issue in the run right over 200 during the Perez run, where it had a purple background. I thought that's kind of interesting and different, So I started hunting stuff down like that. But yeah, it's a theme collection is a challenge, but a lot of fun.
I got your month right. It's February, right?
Yes, it sure is.
Okay. This is how many comics, ladies and gentlemen, Wes will have to buy.
And as I say, I've got about 90% of the Marvel and DCs now. I've got all of the high dollar stuff, but it's the odd companies are the ones that give me a little tricky. But yeah, and the cool part is I'm going to have more comics than will fit number of pockets on my spinner rack. So
of course. The thing is, about anyone, by the way, if you want to have some fun, go to Mike's Amazing World site. Go to the newsstand section of it. It's a great blog. And if you want to find out if you're a weirdo like some geeks like us for some reason, want to find out what comics came out the month you were born, go there and search this out like I just did here. Because I do it just for the fun of it. I've done it many times. And I look at the ones that came out the month I was born. I'm like, oh my God, I had a pretty good month. And sometimes I'll count like, man, if I were buying off the rack, if I were old enough at that point, I would have bought maybe like 30-something friggin' comics or more of that month.
Well, you know what's fun also with this site, and something I do to kill time if I'm waiting in line or if I'm waiting on an appointment, or I'll call it up on my phone and look, and I'll say, okay, for example, Captain America 205. I remember buying Captain America 205 off the rack. You can look on this website. You look up the Captain America 205. You can look at every other comic that was out that same month, and you will. It's almost a nostalgic drug because you can say, man, I remember seeing this and buying this instead of that, or man, I wish I had seen that FF. I ended up buying the Spider-Man instead. It's a lot of fun, and when you look at them, it can be quite a rush. It really can.
It's a lot of fun, man. And again, because I just can't really afford to collect that much anymore. But every time we all get together and we all go hit the comic shops, it's fun watching you and our buddy Carl and other friends just grabbing stuff, completing that collection and that never-ending journey. It's a lot of fun, man. Being a comic book collector, it is wonderful, and you do it well, bud. You do it well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Raquel Briggs. So, I'm going to start saying some goodbyes to my friends here. I don't want to keep anyone too long. I don't want to keep Wes too long. He was nice to come here and show us all that stuff. Dude, you really entertained with that stuff. Everyone loved seeing your collection and everything, man. The stuff you have there. Of course, it's the tip of the iceberg. And I really appreciate it, buddy. So I'm going to start. We'll see if I can remember everyone now, because we did have quite a crowd. It was a whole bunch of them. I want to thank, of course, she stopped in earlier. Now, it's very late over on her side of the world, but Purple Valkyrie, the beautiful Purple Valkyrie, popped in later. If you're hearing me or not, love you, Purple, and thank you for being here. Also, love the wonderful Raquel Briggs for popping in. Of course, it's always going to be ladies first around here, because we some Southern gentlemen. And Raquel, soon. We got to do another Trek show soon. Please. Number one, we must do one. The great Edit K is here, as always. Buddy, I cannot thank you enough for popping in, my friend. You've been Been a good pal to me here since my short time here on the YouTubes, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see, Mark with a C, another great pal as always. Mark with a C, we'll do something soon, man. Let's figure something out to do, and we will do it soon. Whatever it is, it'll be comics and it'll be geeking out. Lord Thoth, my good friend, sir. Thank you for popping in. Legion show next week with Carlos. Top 10 favorite Legionnaires. Why? Because we're just that way. Yeah, I know what you meant, Slab there, buddy. 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser, another new buddy who's been on with me before. Thank you for being here, my friend. I'm very happy to see you. Mark with a C. I'm always honored to have you pop in, sir. Who else did we have? We had a lot of Latino Slant, my good buddy Paulie. He popped in earlier, and I always appreciate it. He's a great friend. I moderate for him, and going to be on with him soon, of course. And as always, we love the great Stone Loki, Master of Valhalla, who made my intro, outro. And I'm all on with him on Tuesday nights as a regular part of that crew now, thanks to him. He's really taken me in there, and I really appreciate him so much. He's a great guy. I mean, again, I made so many great new friends here on YouTube. Anyone who has not checked out these channels, Retro Blasting and all these other ones that are in the description below here, please go check those great channels out, and including my buddy 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser. I forgot to give a shout out to the wonderful Lorena Creole, who was so kind to have me on her show yesterday as a guest for her noon lunch table show with her and the great Fat Steven Seagal. They were both terrific. I had a wonderful time being on that show. I'm honored. That's a great channel. Link to her channel below as well. All these wonderful channels of all these new YouTubers and not so new ones have been just a bunch of great new pals that I've made here. Also, who was I'm not sure who popped in earlier. So if I have forgotten Joe Jobber was here earlier. Jobber, shout out, buddy. We're Flash and I very soon with our hated movies list. It might even be this week. I'm going to talk to him because we got that list working. We get to do some pure rage towards some movies we hate, which we enjoy. Because most of our lists are about things we love. So once in a while, let us beat up on some stuff. Because it's your idea, Jobber, so you love hearing this rant. You know it. So, and I appreciate you, buddy. He's an old buddy from BTR. We have a lot of fun. I love Flash. He came on the other day with me. He will be back. Anyone else out there, if I missed you that you popped in there, look, it's old man's memory. It's the way it goes. I can't remember that far back. Can't remember as far back as the chat goes there. Raquel, let's see. Yes, soon. Well, you're too kind. And Wes, you're getting all kind of raves from all these people that really like what you're doing, man. And I hope you will come back and we'll talk comics again whenever you're able, buddy.
Maybe I should crash the Legion show and be Treasury lad, right?
Yeah, you want to crash it? You crash it. Come on, man.
I used to do that on VTR. You remember? You'd have a great guest on VTR, and I'd call in, and I'd kind of like take over. I know. Well,
it'd be like old times. So both of us picking on Carlos.
Oh my God, yes.
You can never get enough of that. So
yeah, he'd love it. But no, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on, man. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot. And thanks to everybody out there for the kind words. And I hope you all have a great evening. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, my friend. And thank you all, everyone. Again, I wish I could hang with you all night, but I mean, I've kept you here long enough, and I just had a fantastic time. So big shout out to everyone out there. And, well, I'm going to play my little outro. Okay. And as I play my little outro, again, big thanks to the great Stone Loki, my good friend and the Master of Valhalla. Oh, I always forget about it. Shout out to the wonderful Mexican Iron Man, our beloved brother, who was, as we all know, still working up that big injury. We love him, and he's the man. We're all still, rooting for him out there. So, yep, best to him. Thank you, everyone. Good night.